thank you for joining us. I'm Jackie Broach, and this is First Friday with Georgetown County. Our first guest today is Dan Harding. He is a professor of the School of Architecture at Clemson University. And earlier this week, Dan brought a team of students to our library to give some very interesting presentations, potentially regarding the future of our port. Dan, can you tell us a little about that and what your students have been up to?
Yes, thank you, Jackie. Well, it was wonderful to come down on Monday. Last spring, we applied for the USDA Rural Business Development Grant. The purpose was to work with the county and to focus on the Port 31 site, which is historically, the port, the 40-acre site right in the middle of Georgetown. Uniquely, it belongs to the county or is part of county property. So its connection to the city, to the history, to the water was really an amazing opportunity. To be able to integrate that type of work or an opportunity for a site that's important to South Carolina, but also to Georgetown, and to integrate it into design work and also do some of the research work that we do at the School of Architecture and through the Community Research and Design Center was an outstanding opportunity.
So for anybody who may not know, the county took possession of the port, I think it was 2 years ago now. It is no longer an active port. We've been doing some cleanup there, some environmental studies, and we are hoping to see it developed into something else in the future. We don't know exactly what yet, but it could be one of the designs from one of your students or some variation of one of those or several of those. I was really impressed by what they put up there, the concepts and all the thought that had obviously gone into making this something that really fit with our communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I think was wonderful for us is, and I think this is important to identify, is that one, it was great to be here and to be part of presenting the work in the way we did, but also understand that it's actually been going on for a long time. So in 2016, the county engaged the Urban Land Institute, often referred to as the ULI. And there was a report that came out the report was focusing on this site particularly and the potential that this site had for Georgetown County, the city, the region, and the state. That document really created a foundation for what this group of students through this particular grant was able to build on. And so without that foundation and without those efforts that go back to 2016 and plus, we would have not had the ability to do what we were doing, now. I think importantly out of that, which is really amazing, was that it identified that to redevelop some of these historic sites that we know, let's say from industrial standpoints, that there was going to be a definition that was going to categorize some of these sites as unique place types. And the way that Georgetown County kind of adopted that as some planning strategies and zoning strategies was really important. And that was a big step for us to start on.
Tell me about some of the process for how you and these students worked through these designs. Did they have a chance to visit the port site in person? Mm-hmm. Did they spend some real time in Georgetown?
Absolutely. So in addition to reading the reports and other information that we were provided, which I think is really important for any design student to do, is to get their basis and kind of establish a foundation for their own thinking. We came down and spent several days here in Georgetown. We were able to meet with county administrators. We were able to meet with community members and council members. We were able to spend an entire day on the site. We were able to understand the work that was going on for the site cleanup. We also spent time just walking through historic Georgetown over to the baseball field. And so really doing what we could do to understand the physical context and connections that the site had. Obviously connecting to international paper and doing the best we could to understand the opportunities that the site presented so that the students could represent ideas that they thought and present ideas that they thought would be meaningful to the community, but also respond to some things that they felt they were seeing here. I think it's really important that designers and especially young students in a way train themselves to be listeners first understand a place before they advance an idea that they're thinking. And that was a big part of the project, was being down here and spending some good time staying here and in all varieties and ways. So it's a wonderful community, and the students did a great job, I think.
I enjoyed several of the concepts that were pitched, including a port museum was in one of the presentations. Two proposed turning the existing silo into some sort of an entertainment venue. I thought that was very interesting. And I was also impressed that at least one of the presentations had also taken into account sea level rise. So those are important things that I wouldn't have necessarily expected students to, the sea level rise in particular, but they were very impressive presentations.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we do in the studio is adapt common frameworks to our industry. One particular is the American Institute of Architects put out a framework for design excellence. And it asks a series of critical points. One of them is to consider how we're designing with water. And so certainly you can imagine that having a group of students from the upstate, Clemson, knowing that we get a chance to work with the community here in South Carolina, but in the Low Country, you really need to identify what makes this place different than what is normal to, let's say, the environment that they're in. And although we have students that were from the Low Country and we have students from all over the world, being able to study the impact of storm surge, high tides, just the impact that water is going to have on our coastal environments, put that in the forefront, because we're able to then look and study how buildings are being built today. What are our standard building codes? What are our standard baseline flood elevations? What we're planning today should be as responsible for tomorrow as it can possibly be. One of the unique things that we found in some of the research, especially with regards to base flood elevations, also potential events that could create significant rise in the water levels, was some historical data. And what we realized, if you go back in time to some of the oldest buildings on Front Street, and then some of the proposals on some of the impacts of the water and the impact of stormwater and sea level, and go forward, it's the same amount of time. So if we go back 100 years, and we know that we're talking about preserving, let's say, the history on Front Street, we should also be thinking 100 years in advance, because if we can know the past, we need to have an understanding of the same time frame into the future. And because clearly the way that some things were built 100 years ago, we still are able to take care of and we care about. So that was something that we really pushed to the students, to not just think about what it means to them today and now at this moment, but what was being communicated historically, and what's the history of what they're proposing going to be. What happens when someone's working on their project 100 years from now, the same way we're getting the opportunity to work about some historical things in Georgetown today. And I think that helps for me frame an opportunity of collaboration. And I mentioned this in our meeting, in our public presentation, that we have the opportunity to collaborate with those that we were in direct proximity with, but we also have the ability to work on those who have come before us and collaborate with those in the past, in hopes that we're being good collaborators for those who come after us. And that was something that the students were asked to consider. And I think it showed up in some of their thinking relative to stormwater, water elevations, other approaches, hopefully, that they were thinking about. Connectivity was one too that you mentioned. How do you connect to the historic neighborhoods? Because they're prolific for Georgetown, both west and east side.
That is certainly a very interesting way of looking at things from a past perspective. I was glad to see that so many of them did incorporate the West End, and it didn't just stop with the Front Street Historical District. So I think that's something that a lot of residents will be impressed with. For those who did not make the presentation on Monday, there is a video of the presentations available via our website, gtcounty.org. And it was, while they were wonderful presentations, I understand that it was condensed for this format. They did give much longer presentations within their class structure, correct?
That's right. So this group of students did this project from August until December, so last fall term at Clemson. And they had a presentation in December where it took an entire afternoon. So we visited and communicated and reviewed each project for, I guess, 4 or 5 hours. So each student and each team really went in to elaborate on so many of the fine level of details, from zoning strategies to planning and site design to architecture to public space, social issues, building programs, some of the impacts on the economic component. And all of that allowed to tease out conversations and to help the students also prepare for today, because in doing that, I think in preparing for their presentations, allowed them to focus on what was most important about their ideas and what about the ideas were really relevant to Georgetown. One thing that came up, if I can, was that it was interesting to see the students work in understanding, for example, 17 and the bridge that comes over the site. And it was a conversation that, in talking about the connectivity, for example, between the east and the west side, and that the bridge kind of went over the river, and you're mentioning water, but that the community could also flow under the highway. So in thinking about opportunities, one may look at that site and the land and the park that's from International Paper Site into the Port 31 site is a very unique industrial site, but place a lens on it as if it's a community park, and all of a sudden people can flow from one side to the other just very fluidly, the same way that the river can flow. And it allowed us to start looking at things that maybe are, how do you convert potential constraints into opportunities? Or a saying I always enjoyed was, the same sun that melts the wax hardens the clay. So for each opportunity that we think there could be a constraint in the design, does it maybe offer us something that is more positive?
It's a wonderful example of how good design can impact a community for generations.
Correct. I think that was the other thing is, importantly, this was a starting point for that community conversation. It was something that I've really enjoyed working with Angela Christian at the county. She is just a spectacular human being to work with, inspiring in so many ways. And for those that were able to be at the library on Monday when we presented, there was a moment in the studio where the studio as a whole decided that we needed to build these models and these stands for these drawings.
And it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful thing to behold.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it felt that way to us too. I'm really glad.
It was very impactful.
One thing that we realized was that somehow, how do people see each other in their community? And we decided that we shouldn't just put drawings on the wall. We needed to put some of these models up at eye level, so that when you looked at it, you were also looking at someone else. Or that when you looked at it, you were moving and looking at drawings, so that you had to communicate with someone else about what you were seeing, and that you had to move around the drawing. And Georgetown, to me, is this amazing place. The more that you're here, the more that you move through it, the more that you see it stretched out, and you get glimpses of the landscape and little vignettes and views from East Park looking back at the site, the bridge looking down, being on the port and looking out, being in West Side and looking down the street toward the mill, or seeing the baseball field, or, there's all these amazing views and connections to places that the students really wanted their work to be presented in an exhibit type of feeling, so that they could share with the community members. And so I was very proud of how Monday went from that standpoint, that just the way that folks were able to ask questions, engage with the work. So it was a plus from a standpoint as an educator and a faculty member, to see my students, our students at Clemson, do such great work. But we really enjoyed seeing how folks were able to start talking about different ideas together. And that was
going back to that word conversation. Ms. Christian did say that, that was her goal for the outcome of this project, was to start a community conversation to get people talking about what they'd like to see there. And personally, I could see any of the design concepts that were presented on that site. So hopefully people who were in the room will start talking about it, and people who weren't in the room will have a chance to go back and watch the video, and they can talk about it too in the future, maybe not the near future, but in the future, we'll actually see something like this happening on that site. It's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, I think I walked away feeling the same way, in that the emphasis on connectivity and how folks could walk from the baseball field to East Side Park, or water taxis, and mixed use living, a variety of I think approaches were very healthy to see, and you hope that those all go into the kind of the idea bucket of those who come next, and that it just helps to take that conversation to the next level. And I know that that's important, that hopefully conversations start but they keep growing. And I was really encouraged by the presentation and the meeting and the comments and the attendance. I thought was spectacular. How many community members were very interested, obviously, in the site, but were such open participants in the way the presentation went. So that was really spectacular to be a part of, and certainly I know made me feel very proud of the work that the students had done, but that also that the community had reached out, and that we have these partnerships, these reciprocal partnerships through South Carolina, through Clemson, was also very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you can think of to mention that we didn't touch on already?
No, I think this has been great. I'm really looking forward to what comes next.
Me too.
And I think that's the sense that I really love how ideas start, and that you're always cultivating them. And I find that, like any sort of art or any sort of idea, there was always something that I appreciated by Henry David Thoreau that seemed to suggest that, dream, always let your ideas become castles in the air. You'll find a way to put foundations under them. And I thought that we were given this opportunity from at Clemson with our students to integrate this into some of our work with the grant. That seemed to, we were allowed to search for ideas with the idea of starting something, knowing that the next step is really going to put foundations under them. And I can't wait to see what is going to happen for Georgetown. It's an amazing community. It has challenges that it faces every day. Even since we started this project, things have changed dynamically within the, in the community. But there seems to be something that is here that just touches on this resilient nature that Georgetown is always present in, not just crafting its future history, but dealing with its present tense. So thank you for having us. It's been amazing to be here and to have spent the time that we've been able to spend with the project, and look forward to hopefully other projects in the future.
I think I can speak for everyone when I say it was definitely our pleasure. Thank you for coming on and talking with us about this. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I will hope to talk with you again in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Our next guest is Matt Millwood of our planning department. Matt is going to talk with us a little about the next phase of something we've been doing for a while, a blight removal project. Matt, tell us what the latest is with that. Tell us what we've achieved so far.
Yeah, so this is basically phase 3 of our blight removal program. We started the first phase back in 2023, late 2023. Then we did a phase 2 in 2024, and we have kickstarted this one, and we have, I believe it's 14 or 15 houses this time that we are going to demo, totally free at cost to the property owner. We're going to demo the house, haul it off, and grade their property, so they will have a nice clean piece of property to bring either a new mobile home or to build another stick-built house on their property.
So how does this benefit the community?
Well, I mean, the blight itself, just run-down, dilapidated structures are an eyesore. There are also, they harvest animals and rats and snakes and It can't even go into,
Some safety issues.
yes, definitely safety issues. So it's really trying to clean up the neighborhoods that have these old dilapidated houses that the owners just, they can't fix up because they don't have the funds, or they are just leftover heirs properties that nobody has really wanted and they've fallen in disrepair.
So when did phase 3 start?
So we put out the RFQ back in November, I believe it was, of 2024. We have gone through the selection process. We have a contractor out of, I believe this one is out of Taylor's, South Carolina, and they were the lowest bidder, and we have selected them to come in and do this phase of the demolitions. We just had a pre-con meeting with them yesterday and a site visit to the 3 locations. 3 locations, or one of them is out in what's called Little Italy, right near Andrews. There's also a section called the Old PD Park area, which is kind of northwestern part of the county, I guess. And then there is Grave Station. There's a couple more houses that we did not hit in phase 1 and phase 2 in the Grave Station area. So we're gonna go ahead and get those down.
Now, if I'm remembering correctly, the first phases of this project were in Grave Station, so it sounds like it has kind of spread out to other areas a little bit.
It has. Some council members have heard about it. Originally, it was Mr. Everett Carolina that was backing it. He really wanted to get the Spring Gully and Grave Station area, which is in his district. And then lately, we've had some other council members kind of come in. Mr. Morant was asking about his community in Plantersville and around Plantersville, and so we made sure we reached out to other communities, and we got some other applicants, totally voluntary applicants, and we went out and spoke with them and felt like they would be they'd be good for the program as well.
So when are you expecting the demolition work to start, did you say?
So it should be starting is mid to late February, so about 2 or 3 weeks from now is when it'll start. Being the contractor is from out of town, they're going to try to come in and get it done quickly. So we hope that it's not going to take more than a week or 2. Technically, we've given them by contract 30 days, but they're going to try to get it done quickly. And then if we have any change orders or anything, something happens, there's always something that comes up. We might have to extend that time a little bit, but we're hoping by the beginning of March that this phase will be completed.
Great. So in the beginning of previous phases, I've been out with you and I've kind of seen the difference that it makes once these properties are gone and you just got graded land there. What has the community response been like?
Positive so far. We might have had 1 or 2 issues with some neighbors that said the demolition equipment has ruffled up the road or has done this or that. But the contractor has been very receptive to that and come in and fix the issue right away. So so far we've been very happy with the work that's done in phase 1 and phase 2, and we expect that same continued outcome in phase 3.
How is this funded?
So this was funded through the ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan Act monies. Then we allocated a certain amount of money towards this, which covered phase 1 and phase 2. And then when we got into 2024, the city administrator had decided that we wanted to allocate a little bit more money towards it because it was good for the neighborhood, and everybody was accepting the project very well.
Do you think that we will see further future phases of this?
I would like to. I don't believe there's going to be any ARPA money left after this, but maybe other grants, or maybe the county wants to use some funding towards blight removal. As from the planning department, we would also love to see maybe used for like blighted cars and things like that. That is a huge issue in our community. So maybe we'd like to see that branch out, not just structures and homes. Maybe we could look at maybe some commercial structures, cars, dilapidated cars and things that are all over people's front yards. But I'd like to see something in the future. That'd be great.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything else you can think of to tell us about this?
No, we're excited to get this next phase down. If we do open it back up for a phase 4 or something, maybe this summer or next year, we'll try to get that word out, and we'll just go from there, I guess.
We will certainly help you advertise for applicants on our website, gtcounty.org. I personally hope to see this project continue. I think it has been a real enhancement for areas of our community, and I think that residents would agree. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate
Appreciate it,
it.
Jackie.
That's it for First Friday with Georgetown County. Once again, if you missed the port presentations, a video will be linked to our website at gtcounty.org. I'd also like to take an opportunity to remind you all to sign up for our monthly newsletter, the Georgetown County Chronicle, via the News and Alerts button on our website. In addition to the newsletter, you can sign up for news alerts, meeting and event notifications, emergency alerts, and more based on your interests. As always, I'd like to end with some upcoming events for this month that might be of interest to you. The Waccamaw Library's French Film Festival will continue this weekend with films being shown in the library auditorium tonight at 6 p.m. and tomorrow and Sunday at 2:30 p.m. County Council will meet on February 11th and February 25th at 5:30 p.m. at the historic County Courthouse. On February 12th, the Georgetown Library will launch its special Shared Traditions series, which explores and celebrates the profound enrichment of American life through African American cultural experiences. The first presentation will take place February 12th, featuring Ron Days, who will discuss his new historical novel, Raptors and the Ricelands. The Plantation Singers will follow with a performance on February 19th. Find the full schedule at gtcounty.org/newsroom. On Valentine's Day, the Waccamaw Library will celebrate its 10-year anniversary with a day of special activities, including an open house from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., a ukulele concert for kids and babies at 10:30 a.m., and a party from 3 to 4 p.m. County offices are closed on February 17th for President's Day. The Planning Commission will meet on February 20th at 5:30 p.m. at the historic County Courthouse. For more events and meetings, check out our calendar at gtcounty.org. Thanks again for joining us.